Well, welcome back to the Hot Seat. I'm delighted today to be joined by Raj Sachdev, who's a client director at Strabens Hall from London. We're recording this today in Dubai ahead of the PCD dinner tomorrow night. Welcome, Raj.
Thank you, David. Thank you for inviting me along.
So looking forward to seeing you at the networking dinner tomorrow night here in Dubai. For those PCD members who aren't familiar with you, haven't met you before, be great to hear a little bit more about yourself and the firm.
Great, thank you. A bit about myself. So I've been covering the Gulf region since 2010. And I was flying out to the region on a quarterly basis. And in 2013, made the plunge to come out here. It was a great time. I was here for 5 years. And then since then, back in London, and doing the quarterly travel to the region, meeting clients in the UAE, as well as professional contacts, UAE, Bahrain and Qatar. A bit about Strabens Hall, been going over 10 years plus. I mean, the main emphasis on the business was, financial planning, succession planning. And now, over the last few years, we've kind of realized that there is a niche for investment consulting. So Andrew Hodgson, who heads up the team, ex-Citi, ex-HSBC, is able to provide advisory services to clients on their investment needs.
Great. And what's your personal area of sort of focus or expertise that you tend to talk to clients about?
Sure. So it's mainly investment driven, David, to be honest. Having worked at Citibank and a local bank here, very much focused on, on investment strategies for the clients, whether that be depending on what their objectives are, whether that's income focused, growth focused. So very much, on that basis.
So succession planning is a major sort of hot topic for clients here in the region. Yeah. What is it that you see from that field that you tend to engage clients on?
So I think there's three key elements to that, David. I think firstly, you've seen, especially from kind of a local family perspective, is very much being the eldest son or the prominent male taking over the relationship of the family's wealth. But given now that women be highly educated in the region, as well as having successful careers, that focus now is potentially going towards women, and for the women to kind of manage the affairs of the family, and specifically their wealth. Yeah.
And what kind of sort of solutions might you talk about with these clients when they're looking at the options in succession planning?
So obviously in the region, we do touch upon, for example, Sharia law, and some families prefer to go down that route, but there are some that just take a partial view on that. So it's very much depending on the family's objectives on that basis. So it could be that if it's Sharia law, then obviously Sharia compliant products, or we could look at overall investment products. And as you know, Dubai has numerous banking institutions here, and for example, with Strabens Hall, we have a few partnerships with a few of the banks that can assist with the clients and get the right objectives for them.
Okay. And I mean, are insurance solutions a big part of the mix there? Are they widely understood by clients and sort of taken up, as it were?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, given especially Middle East clients, they have an appetite for property. In the UK, something like obviously the discussion on inheritance tax comes up quite regularly. So obviously there are structures in place that clients set up to kind of reduce these liabilities, especially from a succession planning. But ultimately, it's the easiest option is taking out a whole of life insurance policy and using that to mitigate the IHT liability. Yeah.
And you're an investment expert primarily.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's tricky times in markets at the moment.
Times, yeah.
If clients are sat there in cash, nervous, what kind of process are you taking them through to understand how they should be investing?
Well, I think at the moment, given the markets have been very turbulent, and since the start of the year, it has been quite bearish. So I think for now, for clients to remain in cash, look at some conservative approach, not taking such a high risk, because given that with the equity markets, we still don't know where the dip is, to be honest. Just recently you had the likes of Meta and Google coming out with results which are not so positive, and that's had a knock-on effect on their share price.
Do you see clients here owning a lot of tech stocks? Are they interested in the sort of in the tech sector as investors?
Absolutely. It's a very, very futuristic city. So to speak, just last week, I believe, or a few weeks ago, we had the GITEX here, which is a massive conference based in the World Trade Center, and tech stocks is a very big thing here. I think being a futuristic city, it goes hand in hand with that. Absolutely.
And inflation's a big threat to
Yeah.
wealth globally. All
Absolutely.
countries are experiencing fairly fast-growing inflation. How are you seeing that factoring through into the kind of assets that clients should be owning or constructing portfolios?
Sure. I think that's a very good question, and it's actually quite a tough question to answer, given that inflation is sitting at 10%, and you're looking at yields potentially. I mean, my clients, for example, were happy with yields of 5-6%, but given inflation in some countries running at 10%, it's quite difficult. So I think, client by client, you've got to look at a tailored approach for that client. Appreciate that inflation is very high, but if we're looking at returns for clients over 10%, 15%, obviously there is a bit of a risk factor to that. So that's something to bear in mind.
And diversification, I guess, is a primary
Absolutely.
motivator for families creating wealth in businesses here, but they want to invest globally.
Well, this is it, absolutely. And what we see is with the families is obviously when the children are educated, for example, US, UK, some of them tend to stay there, continue on with their careers there. And on that basis, what happens is the feedback to the families is, well, this is what we should be looking at rather than just concentrating on the Middle East. So it's very, very much a diversified global investment strategies that the prominent families are using here.
And in terms of the type of service families can get, I mean, obviously there's a whole range of firms here, global banks,
Absolutely.
there's advisory firms here. You're based in London.
Yep.
London has a good reputation for this kind of advice, but how do you see the service that you provide fitting into the picture?
Well, and another very good question. I think for us at Strabens Hall, because we're an independent wealth advisory firm, there's two key points here. Firstly, the independent part of it. We're whole of market. We're able to provide a list full of solutions rather than specifically being tied to one provider. And secondly, I think it's the accountability. We're able to give constructive criticism to our clients on the providers that we've advised the clients to invest into, and secondly, more importantly, we're able to scrutinise a strategy if need be with the providers, and on that basis, we provide a quarterly consolidated report to our clients, giving them an update of how their investments are progressing, and if we feel as though that potentially one of the providers is not performing, we can potentially replace that provider with another provider. So it's very much agnostic. What our
It's
approach
investment
is.
consulting, isn't
Absolutely.
it? Really looking at
Yeah.
the strategy and who's performing.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I know that you also travel to other countries
Yes.
from the region, so
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to just get a flavour. I mean, I'm off to Riyadh for the first time on Monday. What is
Sure.
it that you see in Saudi when you're speaking to clients there?
Well, with Saudi, I've actually, the countries that I cover are the UAE, Qatar, and Bahrain. But with Saudi, you just see this exponential explosion of, investment from, the local authorities. We've just touched upon the NEOM project, this 2030 vision, and it's fantastic the way that they're actually going about doing this, because they realise that given the oil prices have come off from 2015, they realise they need to diversify. I think you've seen that with Dubai over the last 20 years, with the trade, with the tourism, and I think Saudi wants to be part of that. So I think there's great opportunities in Saudi Arabia. They're very much on a transition period, and we look forward to seeing how things pan out there.
So they're attracting inward investment, because I guess foreign investors are looking at NEOM and other projects and thinking
Absolutely.
Things look interesting, but also I guess local wealth is naturally also very international out of Saudi, has always been.
Yeah,
So
it has.
So are you seeing, I guess, a greater openness really there in the economy?
Absolutely, and I think with the Crown Prince being there, he's trying to change things to be more of an open country, similar to the UAE. I think given where we are in the region, I must say the UAE is a very forward-thinking country, and I think other countries in the Gulf are looking at the UAE and trying to replicate that in their countries.
It's a fantastic hub, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But, with Qatar, obviously we've got the World Cup coming up. There's been a huge amount of investment, a lot of spotlight on it, I suppose, as well. But what do you see of the local business families there that you advise? Is there anything particular to the local market that you observe, or actually the challenges are pretty universal?
I think
across the region?
challenges, as you say, the challenges are pretty universal. They're obviously with the prominent families, they're very much diversified globally, investing, UK, US, Europe. So as you said, very much on a global presence. Yeah.
And finally, I mean, just back on the investment side, I mean,
Yeah.
we've been in an era where passive investment was in vogue, and active managers were questioned. Do you think now is a moment where extra value can be got by investors through using active managers or paying closer attention to stocks that can perform? What's your assessment on that age-old debate of passive on active?
Well, we've seen it, this year with passive investments. Is pretty much, tracked the indices, and they've really not performed that well. Given with active management, I mean, just to give you an example, at Strabens Hall, we have obviously a panel of fund managers, and I would say to you that we have obviously not outperformed the indices, but our downside has been relative compared to the indices and compared to a lot of investment strategies that you're hearing that the people tell you, that clients tell me, look, I'm 20% down on the year. I can tell you at Strabens Hall we're nowhere close to that. So I definitely believe the active approach is the right approach.
And we've got the networking dinner tomorrow night. We've got a lot of guests coming down, intermediaries from a variety of sectors.
Sure.
When you come to Dubai, what are the kind of people you like to meet? Who are the professionals you tend to focus on trying to build relationships with?
Absolutely. So it's, as you said, it's the law firms, the accountancy firms, the trust companies. I mean, looking at your list, there's some familiar faces on there. I mean, as I said to you before, residing in Dubai for 5 years has definitely benefited me in terms of the networks events and being able to meet people. So really looking forward to it, and looking forward to meeting some new faces and new potential contacts for myself.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You had a good few years out here.
Absolutely.
But are you seeing other Brits looking at actually coming out here for a few years? I mean, I think it seems in the public consciousness in the UK, pretty peak, doesn't it?
It is. I think now, especially now where we've seen, the influx of, Russian nationals, Ukrainian nationals, given what's going on in that part of the world, and given in the UK we're going for a bit of a tough time at the moment. I think it's a great place to be, even if it's for a few years or however long you wish to stay. It's like I said, it's a very futuristic city, has a lot of benefits, and it's a great place to work and live.
Great. Raj, fantastic to talk to you. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow night.
Really appreciate it. Thank you for your time, David.